Welcome to the DFIRmas Podcast, a short series podcast by DFIRmas, hosted by Amy Moles. This episode, I'm joined by Lili Infante, who is the CEO of Cat Labs, a trailblazing company dedicated to building cutting-edge tools to combat crypto crime. Drawing on nearly a decade of pioneering experience in the U.S. Department of Justice, Lili spearheaded a dynamic interagency task force addressing dark web and crypto-enabled crimes. Her leadership brought teams together, agents, intelligence analysts, and federal prosecutors in innovative efforts to counter emerging threats in the digital landscape. Now at Cat Labs, Lili continues her mission to protect communities and businesses from crypto-related crimes, leveraging her deep expertise in law enforcement and technology. She's passionate about innovative and justice, and she's at the forefront of creating solutions that empower investigators to stay ahead in the fight against activities in the digital age. All right. Hi, Lili. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I'm super excited to hear your story and your background. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this industry?
Thank you for having me. So in my previous life, I was actually a federal law enforcement officer. I was a DEA special agent and was doing that for about a decade. And in that decade, I ended up focusing exclusively on cryptocurrency and dark web enabled crime. And I actually ended up building a task force that was a federal task force that focused exclusively on these areas kind of tech-enabled crime. And so I did that for about 10 years. We were doing a lot of dark web cases, a lot of kind of cyber type cases. And then around 2020, 2021, crypto really exploded into the mainstream. And what ended up happening is these kinds of cases that were crypto enabled were not just kind of a niche area anymore. They were now infiltrating every facet of crime. So it didn't have to be cyber crime. It didn't have to be dark web. It could be drug cartels. It could be human trafficking, fraud, scams, anything. Now cryptocurrency was being used to facilitate these other kind of more traditional types of crimes. And so what I ended up seeing is that there was a kind of a handful of us that knew how to do cryptocurrency enabled crimes or how to address those. And what ended up happening is there was just not enough of us. And there was kind of a human capital problem and a scalability problem for how to do these cases. Because now if every case is a crypto case, you can't have just 5 agents know how to do them. You need to have a better, more scalable approach. And so what I ended up doing is leaving and starting Cat Labs about 2 years ago. And in Cat Labs, we do exactly that. Basically make myself dispensable and allow any type of, any cop, any agent, any intel analyst to be able to do these cases without having to have 10 years of experience and expertise of knowing how to do it.
That is an amazing background. I love like the journey leading up to you founding the company. So that's awesome. Congratulations, because I know that that is not a small feat to run your own company.
That's for sure. That's probably the hardest thing I've done. I've chased guys with guns, but this is the hardest the hardest thing that I've done in my career.
So you were just recently on Capitol Hill, right?
I was, yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of different topics that you covered. One of the topics you covered is like really what's the most alarming thing that like technology that we have that's being weaponized.
Yeah, so what I ended up doing is laying out the different areas of technology-enabled threats that we really need to address as soon as possible because technology allows the bad guys, so I call them the digital kingpins, to scale their reach very, very quickly. So kind of like a hockey stick type of situation, but just for crime. And so what I ended up talking about, and this is my passion and what I kind of dedicate my life to, is the different areas of technology that enable the bad guys. This can be your criminals, your transnational organized crime, your drug cartels, your terrorists, even adversarial nation states. How are they using technology to scale their global reach exponentially? And so the 3 areas that I focused on were cryptocurrency, which is very real and has been used by some of these bad actors for a fairly long time now, and it's a fairly mature way for them to to enable their operations globally. And then also AI and quantum are kind of the next frontiers of how I believe these bad actors are going to be scaling their operations, and in some of these threats that we need to really get ahead of in the near future.
So you spoke a lot about vulnerable populations as well that are being, pinpointed with all these different technologies. Can you kind of go into what those populations are and how you're helping them?
Absolutely. So vulnerable populations are affected by some of these kind of global crime syndicates that are out to get us or out to harm us or our society. Particularly what really rings true to me and is very personal to me is our children are able to access narcotics that are life threatening and are causing significant amounts of overdose those deaths in teenagers, for example, and they don't have to go to the bad side of town anymore. So there's a very kind of very low barrier to entry for our children to be able to access narcotics, and very, very dangerous narcotics such as fentanyl and other types of drugs that are extremely life-threatening. And so they're able to use the dark web. And the reason they're able to use the dark web is because it's one of the easiest way to procure narcotics without having to kind of step foot outside your house. Like you can just buy, fentanyl from the comfort of your own home in your pajamas, just with a keyboard and a computer screen. So that's pretty alarming. And I've seen this happen myself since I've been targeting dark web markets for almost a decade. And the fact that when we take down large dark web marketplaces, we actually see a decrease in overdose deaths. It's the only years after we take down these large dark web marketplaces, those are the only years afterwards that we see decreases in overdose deaths. So that's one of the main, I guess, threats that I'm passionate about in eliminating, or at least keeping a handle on it. And then the next one is, and this has been in the news a lot, is they call it pig butchering scam or romance scams. I don't like the term pig butchering, but that's how they essentially call them. And a lot of more senior populations end up being victims of this type of scam, where it's actually one of the craziest crimes that I've ever seen in my career, where not only is the victim of the scam a victim, but also the perpetrator is a victim too. A lot of times the scammers are human trafficking victims that get basically stolen and kidnapped and put in these warehouses to work and scam people. And so it's kind of a double crime in that respect. And currently there's about over $64 billion per year that's being stolen from people in these romance scams that involve cryptocurrency. So some of these things I think are the biggest threats that we've seen, I think, in my lifetime in terms of how crime is being propagated. And of course, adversarial nation states as well are now able to finance their nuclear arms programs by hacking into crypto protocols and just stealing billions of dollars. North Korea stole billions of dollars over the past few years to finance their nuclear arms programs. China is also financing their operations, and there's a lot of money laundering organizations that are actually laundering funds for various criminal organizations in China. So the criminal organizations are transnational, but there's a kind of a hot spot of actual money laundering organizations that are laundering funds for those criminal enterprises, including adversarial nation states and terrorist and drug cartels. So it's really like an exploding threat, and it's happening very, very quickly.
So how as society are we like what do we do to prevent, getting pulled into some of these scams? Because I know that a lot of the older population is being pulled in, but we do, like you had mentioned, drug trafficking and stuff like that, and these kids being able to purchase online. How do we prevent these scams from happening?
So there's no one silver bullet, unfortunately. So I think there's a few things that we can do. One is we have to empower law enforcement. We have to empower defense agencies, intelligence agencies to be able to get the information, first of all, understand what the threat landscape looks like and what we should be looking out for. That's number one. So having the right information, and then using technology to identify that these, for example, that cryptocurrency is being used in some of these cases. So in law enforcement context and intelligence and defense context. So just identifying that cryptocurrency is being used in those cases is really important. The governments collect about multiple petabytes of data on their investigations every single year. And so that data contains a lot of clues on what these organizations and these networks are using, especially if they're using cryptocurrency. And if they are using cryptocurrency, that's actually an opportunity for us to be able to trace a lot of those funds and identify more perpetrators. And so that's I think the first step is empowering I say the good guys, empowering the good guys that are fighting against the bad guys with the right technology, with the right training to be able to counter these threats is really important. And then when it comes to, let's say, dark web drug trade, or even the pig butchering scams, also, I guess, social media outreach and campaigns that can be used to really bring light to these threats, right? Because what ends up happening is they just don't know the dangers of these things. Some of the kids, they don't understand that if they purchase something on the internet and they ingest it, they may die, right? And so that's something that I think we need to have better campaigns on media, regular media, social media, when it comes to pig butchering scams, because the victims of those tend to be a little bit older in our population. Maybe go in a more traditional media outlets like television, I think would probably work better as well. So yeah, just information, and then also empowering our good guys with the tools, technology, and training that they need to counter these threats.
So you went into tools and training. So what are some of the strategies, I guess, that law enforcement, intelligence, defense sector should be focusing on when it comes to training and tools?
So when it comes to, and it's always evolving because these threats are evolving all the time, but when it comes to cryptocurrency, which is a more mature kind of enabler of crime and threats, there's various tools that are available. First of all, of course, blockchain analytics tools are important because they allow you to trace the blockchain and attribute transactions to real life entities or individuals, and so that's really important. And then so those have been out for a very long time, blockchain analytics tools. And also, and this is something that Cat Labs is working on as well, is identifying that cryptocurrency is being used in investigation. And we do that by allowing agencies to scan through multiple petabytes of data that they collect in their investigations and pull out only cryptocurrency traces. So not only seizable assets, so if there's private keys or seed phrases in that data, but also any kind of leads that they can use to then further their investigations and get more intelligence around the use of cryptocurrency in those cases. So that's very important to do, and it's probably one of the best ways to actually being able to form like linked charts on different linked organizations that are using cryptocurrency, and also just to be able to not only seize more assets, but also identify more co-conspirators in those kinds of investigations.
So for individuals that are listening that aren't familiar with crypto investigations, can you kind of go into what a seed phrase is, like how you're linking, or what maybe if like they come across an artifact, what those artifacts could look like in an investigation?
Yeah, so if you're collecting, if you're, let's say you're in law enforcement or defense agency, you're collecting various types of intelligence depending on your authority of what you can and can't collect. Let's say you're in law enforcement and you're collecting copies of financial records, or copies of, let's say you seized a phone or a laptop in a search warrant, right? And so like there's terabytes of data that you have to kind of manually go through. And so when you seize that data, or when you take possession of that data, it can contain various traces of cryptocurrency use. So for example, communications, if you have notes, communications, things like that, that will allow you to understand whether your target is communicating with, let's say, Binance or Coinbase or any kind of cryptocurrency service, right? So like that's a really common thing to do, because whenever they use cryptocurrency, a lot of times they'll have to convert it into fiat currency or into dollars or whatever other regular currency. And so in order to do that, they will generally go on centralized exchange. And so if you have a centralized exchange, a lot of times those exchanges, if they're compliant, they will collect data on their users. And so let's say if you're in law enforcement and you have your target's email account and they're talking to Binance or Coinbase, you can then send a subpoena to Coinbase and get more information about that target and their use of cryptocurrency, and also if there's any active balance, et cetera, and also transaction history. So that's one area. And then also there could be signs of, especially if it's a phone or a laptop, they may have cryptocurrency wallets or self-custody or centralized custody type wallets that could be in there. There also could be seed phrases and private keys that are stored in various ways within digital data that may be collected. So, for example, a seed phrase is a kind of your password to your wallet or to your cryptocurrency wallet. That's, I guess, the best way to describe it is it allows you, if you have a seed phrase or a private key, it actually gives you access to those funds. So it's a seed phrase usually will have maybe 12 or 24 words. These are random words that can be used to reconstitute a cryptocurrency wallet. And so when you reconstitute that wallet, then you can say, okay, this target has Bitcoin and Ethereum, and this is how much money is in there. And then you're actually able to get access to those funds. And so you're able to seize that money pretty easily, as opposed to, in the traditional financial investigation, you're not really able to do that, where you have direct access to those funds. And so another kind of issue that this actually brings out is that when you are looking through digital data, it could potentially contain seed phrases and cryptocurrency wallets and private key material. And if it does, if it's just one analyst looking at it and nobody else knows that analyst has seen a seed phrase or a private key, which gives them direct access to the money, it could be millions of dollars associated with that seed phrase, could be billions. Actually, there's the largest seizure that's ever happened was over $3 billion, and it was just a seed phrase. That's how they found the money, and so inside digital data. And
Wow.
so yeah, so that creates a pretty big liability for some of the agencies, where they don't know who actually laid eyes on some of these assets. And a lot of times because they just don't have enough time to manually look through all of the data, a lot of times that data is just sitting in an evidence locker or just sitting there in some kind of case management system, and there may be millions or billions of dollars inside that data, and nobody knows about it, just because they didn't have the time or the expertise to really look through it in a proper manner.
So when you're doing investigations, like what is the success percentage, I guess, or success rate for recovering some of these assets? It's extremely hard. I mean, it sounds extremely hard.
Yeah, it's unfortunately first of all, we do recover a lot more cryptocurrency assets than we do traditional assets nowadays, which tells you something. Even with very limited knowledge and experience and technology, we're still recovering more crypto assets. If we add technology that scales, a lot of these people that are experts in this field, right? The reason that we are seizing funds in cryptocurrency is because we have still a handful of people that know how to do these cases. And so these people are seizing the majority of the money for, Treasury, Department of Justice, et cetera. So if we actually added technology that allows every single agent and analyst, not just the select few, to be able to do these cases and find these assets, we would exponentially increase our recovery percentages. I mean, I don't have the exact percentages right now, but we would exponentially increase those percentages just by empowering people that may not necessarily know how to do these cases, but are able to use technology to actually scour through these petabytes of data to find these assets.
So kind of just like spinning right off of that, how, like, what would you tell leaders of these teams that are like, how can they empower their team through training, obviously, but is there anything else that they can do for them?
So are you talking about just like government agencies?
Yeah, government agencies or law enforcement.
Yeah, training is a good way to start. Uh, training training can allow you to have the basics, because the problem with some of these technology enabled crimes is they are fairly high tech, and so you can't really assume that every single person, every single analyst or agent or cop is going to catch on to it in a deep way, in the same kind of deep way that some of the experts are able to catch on to it, or just because they've been, like, I've been doing it for 10 years, and so just by the fact that I've been doing it for 10 years, that's why it's a lot easier for me. But if it's somebody that has no idea about crypto and what it is, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. So it's a good start, but also they need to get the technology, they need to get the blockchain analytics tools, they need to get tools like what we offer at Cat Labs, which is one of our tools is called Recovery Cat. So that's the tool that scans all the digital data that they collect in their investigations for traces of cryptocurrency. And also they need to understand what type of data they should be collecting that could have traces of cryptocurrency, because a lot of them don't know. They don't know that some of these very key types of data that they should be collecting that can contain crypto. And so I think that those are, I think, the most important things is just being equipped with the right technology. Of course, forensic tools as well are really important in this regard, especially when you're looking through hardware devices or phones or laptops and things like that, are really important to actually get images of those devices to be able to look through them.
Yeah, I know that when you and I first met, you were educating me on cryptocurrency. I have never had the pleasure of doing a cryptocurrency investigation. When I was an investigator at the time, it just wasn't something that was used. Uh, a whole lot, so I never came across it. So when you were educating me, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like there's so many people out there that are doing traditional digital forensic investigations that probably just haven't been exposed to it yet, or don't even know that they are exposed to it because it's on their media right now. So I think that that's definitely something important for leaders to kind of like take away is educate, educate, educate for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and also we can't like box crypto investigations into, okay, this is definitely a forensics issue, because crypto kind of spans a lot of different areas in an investigation. So forensics is important. So if you're a forensic analyst and you're dealing with uh, hardware devices where you're imaging things and you're visualizing data, right? If that's what your specialty is, that's great, and you need to know exactly what to look for and what to do with it when you find it, when it comes to cryptocurrency, because a lot of times that is the first time that you actually get access to that data, right? Is early in that workflow where it starts with forensics. But then again, it's not only in the forensic space. There's also other types of data that are not necessarily being dealt with by forensic analysts that can also contain traces of cryptocurrency. So there's other areas in an investigative flow that you would have to kind of employ to look for cryptocurrency, including forensics.
Yeah, those are all super important to know that how all of these adjacent technologies intersect with one another. Um, we have had a large, like, diverse group of people on this podcast, and we spoke to an individual who specializes in dark web investigations. So just listening to how cryptocurrency investigations are impacting his was just mind blowing to me. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
it's really sad.
yeah, it is. So, can you kind of tell us like what gives you hope in this battle? Because it sounds like a lot of these, like we are becoming, these bad actors are becoming more technologically advanced, right? I know when I was exiting doing as an examiner doing casework, a lot of the bad actors that I was interacting with are technologically advanced as well. So, what is the hope that you can kind of positive message you can leave us with as we're going through this?
Well, I guess the hope is, or yeah, I guess the positive thing that I'm hopeful about is, well, the new administration seems to be pretty keen on innovation and crypto in general. So I think that's going to open the door to a lot of innovation in the space. And so we're going to be able to equip some of our government agencies with the tools that they need to counter some of these threats. And so I think that's going to be really good for everybody. And I think there's enough good guys right at this point that are countering the bad guys, and I think that's a good thing. And my main, I guess, motto, is it motto?
Motto,
What is it?
yeah.
Motto. My main motto that I live by is evil prevails when good men do nothing, right? And so I think that we have enough good men and women that do really great work to counter some of these threats. And with the duality of man and the dichotomy that we live in, I think that's a really important piece, is that we have enough good guys to counter the bad guys. We just have to make sure that we're staying on top of it, that we're not just one step behind, or we're not 10 steps behind, we're one step behind, is what's important here. And yeah, and I think there's a lot of really good energy that's happening in the space. That gives me hope.
It gives me hope just listening to you talk about it. So I'm glad that we have a lot of more community like around, like big community around good and people that are out there who want to make a difference. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So this is a holiday podcast, as you can tell with my little like kind of floppy snowman at this point. I'm in Florida right now, so maybe he's just a little droopy because of the weather. But um so
He's hot. Yeah, he's melting.
yeah, yeah. He's not his normal self, but it's fine. We'll get back to the colder weather here soon. Maybe he'll come back to life. So I'm asking everyone on the podcast, what is their favorite holiday tradition? What is yours?
I'm not a very I'm kind of anti-tradition, and I don't want, you know I don't, and the reason for that is I'm an immigrant and I've lived in so many places, and it's really hard to build traditions when you're always moving around, you're always living in a different place. I think or South Florida has been the longest that I've lived in one place, and I really don't have a lot of family here either. All my family is kind of everywhere. But I like to spend as much time as I can with family. It's a really boring answer, but it is what it is. That's my tradition, is it's an excuse to bond with family and to get together. And I have a really bad, usually, I don't stay in touch with a lot of my friends and family. It's like my big vice. And so this kind of forces you to do it. And so, because I forget, not because I don't want to, but that's because I'm like so busy, and I'm always forgetting to stay in touch. So definitely just spending time with family.
I know exactly how you feel. I'm the same way. So it's not that I don't love my family or don't want to see them or talk to my friends or anything like that. It's just I'm so busy on a day-to-day basis that time slips away from me. So sometimes someone will text me and I'm like, "Hey, I'll respond back to you. Like, just give me a couple hours. I'll check my schedule." And then weeks go by. Like, I'm so sorry. I was like, that was not intentional. I did not mean to
Yeah.
ghost you. So no,
Yeah.
I get it. No, I love that. I love that answer. I always think that the holidays do bring a little bit like people together, but also downtime, right? Where you get to reflect a little bit, slow down, kind of recoup from the chaos that was the whole last year. Especially as a business owner, I think that it's probably what I look forward to the most. Is just like a week where I get to do nothing for the whole week. Like I'll still work a little bit, but it's not the same because everyone's
Yeah.
out of the office, so you're not really connecting with folks as much, and it just gives you time to like just kind of recoup and recharge a little bit from the
And also,
chaos.
like, what about having to get all the presents and make dinner, like all this other stuff that doesn't stress you out?
I actually have my favorite reindeer out of Santa's reindeer is his name is Prime, and it's awesome because he delivers everything within 2 days or less.
Oh,
So
excellent. Okay. Very good.
so if it can come with gift wrapping, like even better. But
Awesome.
I try to I actually gift wrap as soon as the presents get to me because if I don't, it's like it's too much. It
Yeah,
becomes like a bigger like it snowballs into not like no pun intended, but it does snowball into like a bigger holiday mess and I'm like I
yeah,
just need to get this done ASAP.
yeah, yeah. No, I usually wing it at the yeah at the last second. So, so more power to you that you're able
Oh
to
my
do it.
gosh.
Oh,
Yeah, I so it's funny because this year is the only year that I actually sent my sister and my nephew and niece their presents on time. So usually I'm like so late and I hopefully she doesn't look at this beforehand, but I even put a card in there being like, "Hey, look, for the first time in my life, I'm actually on time." So, but like
that's
also my niece's birthday presents in there and her birthday was in October.
uh,
So, I was like, "Well, better late than never," right?
exactly, exactly.
So, um well, with that, I will end this. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope that people reach out and ask all the questions about cryptocurrency investigations. And I can't recommend your tool enough. I think that it's awesome. I was able to get a demo of it in person, um, which I thought was so cool. And I just got so educated on cryptocurrency investigations. So I definitely recommend anybody to reach out to you and definitely get a demo as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care.